From a hotel near the Detroit airport, I am Dan Kingerski on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now YouTube page. First, a Happy New Year. I guess I'm recording this somewhere around 12:30, so my Uber driver and I shared an awkward Happy New Year on the way back from the arena. Such is the life, right? Instead of a full game breakdown, which I really don't think that you're in the mood for on a holiday weekend. Also, the Penguins did lose to the Detroit Red Wings 4-2, but it was really a nip and tuck, hard-fought, close game. Detroit, obviously, with a little bit of an extra jump, especially in the beginning of the game, because, you know, that new coach smell with Todd McClellan, who, by the way, looks eerily similar to Dave Foley of Kids in the Hall. Detroit had the new coach smell going, and they really came out in the first 10 minutes and kind of took it to the Penguins. I thought the Penguins actually flipped the script for most of the game. It was a puck bounce game. Whoever got that bounce, that little break, was going to win the game. Detroit gets it. Let me describe the game-winning goal to you. It was a power play goal. And Alex Nedeljkovic, I mean, realize just how much minutia goes into playing goal in the NHL. Nedeljkovic talked about trying to peer around the screen. He said, I went left because there was a big lane to shoot there. I thought the shot would come in that lane. It came on the short side, hits Nedeljkovic, kind of dribbles through JT Compher, whom Erik Karlsson tripped to award Detroit the power play, is right there just to help it across the line. Realize in all of that chaos, Nedeljkovic is able to see, okay, this is the bigger lane. The guy should shoot here, and I'm going to position myself in such a way. The second Detroit goal was also a little bit interesting, kind of like that. Patrick Kane really just let one rip from the right circle, also a power play goal. But it was short side, and I was like, I wonder if Nedeljkovic would like to have that back. And again, here's how good these goalies are. From 30 feet away, 35 feet away, Nedeljkovic can see the puck flip up onto its side. And now he doesn't know where it's going. He can't read the shot like he would if the puck were flat. Think about that. The game essentially decided on a couple bounces like that. So minute, yet so significant. But the Penguins do lose 4-2. They could take a lot. They were pretty sour after the game. And by sour, I don't mean that mopey, depressed Lars Eller sitting in his locker stall like somebody took his dog sort of depression that the Penguins went through in the first couple of months. This was a sour, angry. Very much the same vibe that existed after their Saturday night loss to the New York Islanders in Long Island, when the Penguins kind of knew they let one get away, that they could have won that game, and they were angry, and then they came back the next night with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. I do not think the New Year's Eve celebration would be too boisterous back at the team hotel. Just had that vibe, like they were angry with themselves as they fall back to 500 at 17-17-5. So, real quick, let me dissect part of the game and a little bit of, I don't want to call it criticism, because I think the Penguins played the game that they wanted to play, but I thought they played on Detroit's terms. And what I mean specifically is Detroit wanted to play fast. So the Penguins are like, cool, let's play fast. And both teams really were generating speed up and down the ice, which created opportunities. The Penguins were certainly the grittier, tougher of the two teams. How many net front scrums did the Penguins just miss? Brian Rust lamented a couple of wraparound goals that should have gone in, but didn't. Evgeny Malkin, Anthony Beauvillier, Ricard Raquel, Brian Rust, Sidney Crosby. All of these guys had the puck on their stick multiple times in the crease, around the crease, without a goalie. Or without a goalie ready to make a save, and couldn't get the puck across the line. That was kind of the Penguins game. I might have suggested being the slower of two teams and being proud of that and creating that neutral zone traffic that we've seen so many times over the last month. Create layers, let the young Red Wings make some turnovers and pounce on them rather than, going back and forth. So I promised a Q&A. That's kind of my synopsis of the game. The Penguins could have won. They were a bounce away. Moritz Seider making the Rob Scuderi kick save on Beauvillier. Probably the difference. Really just a close game otherwise. But it was interesting to see the Penguins sort of revel in that fast-paced game. Detroit's faster, though. So, anyway, I might have pulled the reins back a little bit. Okay, so I promised a Q&A instead of straight analysis on the post-game tonight. So David B. was first. Mr. David B. says, O'Connor has been mentioned. Oh, yeah, by the way, Drew O'Connor, 2 goals on, what day is it? It was Tuesday, the game. God help me. I should apologize a little bit because I know my writing has not been its best over the last week, maybe 2 weeks. I'm just so bloody tired. I have worn myself to the nub halfway through the season. And, I'm just getting through it for a minute or two. Those 3 games in 3 days, Wilkes-Barre, Long Island, Pittsburgh, just completely walloped me. I know I made some mistakes that I was kicking myself for. I digress. David B. says, O'Connor has been mentioned as a potential trade candidate this season. If the Penguins are trying to get younger, why would you trade away one of your younger players? Is it because the return in the trade could be worthwhile? So David really touches on a great point. And it's not an easy, quick answer. Because it really kind of comes down to O'Connor being a free agent, the Penguins assessing what they're willing to pay versus what they think the market would pay. If you believe that the market will pay more, then you trade him. So you get something back, right? So you replenish that asset. You're essentially trading in a 4-year-old used car to buy a 3-year-old used car or a 5-year-old. You're taking a gamble on what comes next, but you're also going to save money and you're not going to overspend on an asset. That's kind of where I think it comes down. And to tell you the truth, I think O'Connor really needs a huge second half of the season to get himself a big payday. I think this 32-goal drought could not have come at a worse time for him. I think it sapped his value, quite frankly. I could see the Penguins being able to sign him not much more than $1 million. I like O'Connor at center. Mike Sullivan doesn't. I like O'Connor, especially at a third-line center. Mike Sullivan definitely doesn't. But you saw O'Connor's best on Tuesday. Finally get some anger and aggression going and get that puck across the line. But that's why. You replenish the asset because you're not going to overspend to keep it. Let's see here. Jim Stripsky asks a very pertinent question. To not be sellers before the trade deadline, do they need to be in a playoff position or playing well enough to make Dubas believe they can make a playoff run? Well, it's definitely the latter. Dubas is going to have to be sold that this team can make some noise. I believe it can, but right now they're starting to trade wins and losses back and forth. They're still at 500 now, 17, 17, and 5. That makes you sellers. They're going to have to go on a little bit of a run, and they're going to have to flex a little bit. And even if they do that, Kyle Dubas is still going to sell off a few pieces. Marcus Pettersson probably is prime example of that. Philadelphia did the same last year. You just can't afford to let a defenseman who could bring you a solid return, you can't let that walk for nothing. If you don't get a very good return from Marcus Pettersson, I lean towards re-signing him. He, again, mid-20s guy. You don't have to trade him, but you do have to make sure if you don't trade him, you're keeping him long-term. And if the Penguins are going to squeak into the playoffs, Dubas has said it's sell time. Peter says, the refs made questionable calls that affected the outcome of the game. Yeah, I don't usually like to blame officiating, but tonight they should look at the tape. Yeah, it was... you know me, I'm not one of those people who generally calls the referees into question. It is what it is. But that Brian Rust exchange in the second period probably told you what kind of game you got. When Rust, Penguins are on the power play. Rust goes down the left wing, and Moritz Seider just gives him the chop. Breaks his stick. Moritz Seider actually broke his stick slashing Brian Rust. That's how hard the chop was. The referee hears the noise, turns, sees Seider's stick broken, Rust still with his stick, assumes that Rust did the slashing, calls a penalty on Rust. Now, fortunately for the Penguins, and the referees, quite frankly, the other three referees talked the signaling referee out of the call. However, it didn't call Seider. It did take the puck away and the momentum away and a scoring chance away from the Penguins. You have to call that slashing on Seider. You really do. When you break a guy's stick or you break your own stick, there was that scrum late in the second period when Seider made the kick save. Malkin just got drilled. Cross-checked out of there. I suppose it's a battle zone, but you're supposed to use body to body, not, charging timber. I don't think the Penguins were too interested in blaming the officials. I do think the refs, they managed the game, especially in the third period too. That was definitely a penalty on Erik Karlsson, which gave the Red Wings the game-winning goal. But there again, was it Seider with another hold and a trip on Rust moments later? And they're like, well, the Penguins already had their power plays. That's the stuff that drives you nuts, right? Let's see here. Maggie, is there anybody in Wilkes-Barre that could meaningfully contribute in the second half of the season? Maggie, I'm not going to give you that answer. I'm going to make you read it because I just wrote 1,500 words. I made the trip to Wilkes-Barre on Friday. I'm going to make you read it. Okay, Maggie has a second question here, too. Do I know how long Letang will be out? Come on, Maggie, read Pittsburgh Hockey Now. What are you doing to me? We published that on Tuesday afternoon. He's day-to-day. If it's a while, do I think they still trade Pettersson? Well, it's not going to be a while. He's day-to-day, which is probably the best case scenario for the Penguins. I don't think Pettersson, Letang are entirely connected. Owen Pickering will be back here in a couple of days. He was full contact on Tuesday. And yeah, I think when a team comes to the table and meets Dubas's price on Pettersson, that's when the trade happens. I could be wrong. They could be in double secret probation contract talks. So those are the questions that we got. Also, if you follow me on X, the cult. Actually, all of us Pittsburgh media hockey writers were commiserating. We are sick of you bringing up Jesse Puljujarvi. Stop it. It's like dealing with flat earthers, no matter what evidence. But, honest to goodness, good guy, has some value as a player. Not as good of a fourth liner as Matt Nieto. Yeah, I said it. Not as good of a fourth liner. The analytics crowd wants to make a chocolate cake by pouring more and more and more fudge in the bowl. You need some flour, you need some eggs. Heck, if you really want to go fancy, you also need maybe some chili powder. So that's the best analogy I can come up with. Oh, but his analytics say that he's one of the Penguins' best scoring forwards. Well, yes and no. Never forget that coaches use players in advantageous situations. They're not putting Jesse Puljujarvi out there to defend a lead in the third period. They're not putting Jesse Puljujarvi out there in the hard minutes, which is in fact why he wasn't playing. I swear. If I didn't already enjoy a drink or two a couple times a week, I swear some of y'all could push me there. Okay, so that is it with my lovely iced tea. I shouldn't show you the label. YouTube might think I'm advertising for them. I'm not. Just this is what I'm drinking on New Year's Eve. Iced tea. Okay, that's it. That is, 20-minute Q&A. Like, subscribe. Appreciate all the comments, but honest to goodness, let the Puljujarvi stuff go. Don't get belligerent. Don't get all wrapped up emotionally in it. It is Daniel Sprong Part 2. It's just not the hill you want to die on, because putting together a hockey team is a 3D model. And just because the piece of paper says a guy can score at X rate, which is still questionable, but we'll go with it for the argument's sake. Just because a guy can score more than the other guy doesn't make him the more useful. Anyway. All right, that's it. Happy New Year, everybody. One of these days I'll get to celebrate a holiday with other people instead of in a hotel room. But such is the way the Penguins schedule has definitely been configured for a couple of years. I'm Dan Kingerski, Pittsburgh Hockey Now.